Greetings, lovely people, and welcome to Fast Track Reviews, where today we're going to be looking at Thunderbolts. So here we have yet another entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I am late to. Obviously, I was pretty late, all things considered, to the release of good old Captain America Brave New World, and this is the immediate follow-up. There's actually a lot of connective tissue, which I won't get into too much here, but there is a lot connecting these two films, including a lot of references and stuff like that I am going to be, for the most part, glossing over. But yeah, this is really the next continuation, and it is really fun. I'll say that right off the bat. This is a really fun film that I honestly really enjoyed way more than I expected to. I have been looking forward to watching this one for a good while. I was kind of disappointed that I missed it in cinemas. It was one that I was actually wanting to watch, but due to the fact that I hadn't seen the newest Captain America, knew that it led into Thunderbolts, I was very much under the impression that it wasn't worth me watching them out of order. And I'm very glad that I went with that approach. I waited until Captain America came to Disney+, and as of yesterday, Thunderbolts is now on Disney+ as well. And yeah, I'm very happy that I waited. I'm going to try and be a bit quicker about watching good old Fantastic Four, but enough about the future and the past. Let's talk about Thunderbolts. So, this is the new Avengers film, and I don't think that's a spoiler. It's in the marketing, and in general, it has been theorized for a long time. But yeah, this is our new official, quote-unquote, Avengers team, which is really interesting to think about. And I'm very much looking forward to what the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of the Avengers side of things actually goes from here. But as always, we're just going to go through kind of the plot by plot and discuss everything that happens. So, proper spoilers from this point on. I will be discussing specific plot points as well as various different characters. But yeah, as I said, this film I think is really good. And yeah, you can skip ahead, of course, to my actual review. But yeah, this has been a really fun experience, which is ironic because the characters in this film are not having a very fun, happy time. But yeah, with that being said, let's actually jump into it. So, we start off with our point of view character, who is Yelena Belova, obviously the kind of current Black Widow. She's, ex-Widow, just like, so many other characters in the current MCU. But, yeah, very much kind of filling that Black Widow hole that Natasha left before, when she died. And she isn't very happy. She isn't in a good place, and she isn't really enjoying her work. The entire intro sequence, well, rather the first little intro monologue, is very much set up as if it's a suicide note sort of thing. It's a very interesting scene, something we haven't really seen in, the MCU or Marvel in general. I don't think we've ever had something quite like it, but yeah, she's on assignment, she's destroying a lab, she's destroying evidence for this OXE or OX organization, which I'll get into a little bit further in the video, but the point is, she's not very happy, she's a bit depressed, and she generally doesn't enjoy what she's doing. She doesn't enjoy all the harm she's causing, and she's kind of just, doing things by the numbers. She's just going through life, and, she might be beating people up, she might be blowing up buildings, she might be doing all these different things, but she's also very uninterested. She's disconnected from it all, and it's very much the core theme of this film that everyone has dark days, and you shouldn't let them define you. I think that's a really nice message. I wish they did a little bit more with that, maybe, but we'll get into that when we get to Bob. But Alexei is also not very happy. Obviously, Alexei Shoskakov. I'm really sorry about that pronunciation. The Red Guardian, and yeah, he's back from good old... Oh, he's back from Black Widow. I am very middling on Black Widow as a film, and I really do like the Red Guardian. And I like Yelena as well. I like both these characters. But yeah, just the fact that the current MCU leans so heavily on some of the weaker entries of the original Infinity Saga is very interesting and a little bit telling. Plenty of it is obviously based on, some of the high points, like Winter Soldier, but there is plenty in this current slate that feels like it's just like, it's based on the wrong stuff, It's based on the wrong elements of the MCU, and it is what it is. But yeah, Black Widow aside, we do have Yelena and we have Alexei. They're both not having a good time. They're both pretty depressed. Alexei is currently doing a limo service, which doesn't seem to be very fulfilling. And, yeah, they are not exactly on the closest of terms, being technically father and daughter. They're not exactly on the best of terms still, but we will explore that a little bit further in. Yelena wants out of field work. Ironically, Alexei actually wants to be back in the field, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, Yelena wants out of field work and is given an opportunity by Val, who of course is her employer, the lead of the CIA, and also the, I guess, chairman or something of Ox, of this organization that Yelena was supposed to be destroying evidence for. And yeah, she is offered one last assignment by Val, which is to assassinate someone who is apparently going to be stealing from Ox. And of course, Yelena, wanting, to have a public-facing role, as she keeps saying, decides that she'll take the final assignment and she'll go assassinate this individual at one of the various Ox bases. Only to find out everyone has been sent there with a different target. So not only is Yelena there, but we also have John Walker, US agent, we have Antonia Dreykov, Taskmaster, Eva Stark, Ghost, and, though not revealed initially, Bob Reynolds, Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, or the Void, depending on your perspective. He is both in this film. But yeah, everyone has a different target except for Bob, who nobody knew was going to be there, including Val. Val did not realise Bob was in the room, which is such a major oversight, and I'm amazed that Val has not caused more issues for herself before this, because that is insane to me. But Bob aside for the moment, everyone is fighting each other, and it is a very well choreographed fight scene, though it is literally just punches and guns. It's just fists, guns, a little bit of shield action. Obviously, Ghost has her little teleportation and invisibility ability, so she has stuff going for her, but generally, it is not the most dynamic, but it is a very well choreographed fight scene, and I did quite enjoy watching it. However, it does kind of come to a halt when Taskmaster is killed by Ghost, shot straight through the head, and yeah, it's an interesting turn of events, because obviously Taskmaster, in all of the advertising, is shown to have lasted the entire film. She's shown at every point in the trailers to just be there in the scenes, and she doesn't really do anything in the trailers, to be fair, but the implication was that Taskmaster would be part of this new team, this Thunderbolts team. But no, she is shot essentially right off the bat, and as much as I had heard, through the grapevine sort of thing from other YouTube videos and stuff like that had offhand mentioned it, that she didn't survive the film, I assumed she would just be, a victim of the Sentry, a victim of the Void. But no, she is killed within the first 10 minutes, I believe, by Ghost. And it really did shock me, because I wasn't expecting it, at least that early in the film. But yeah, Taskmaster is gone. Everyone else is still fine. So just to recap, we have Black Widow, Yelena Belova. I'm going to call her Black Widow just for the sake of this, but we don't really know what a designation actually is. We have the Red Guardian, who isn't currently in the room, but we do already know about. We've got US Agent, we've got Ghost, and just revealed we have Bob the Sentry, and we have also already seen Bucky, but I'll get into him in a moment. So yeah, they find out that the room that they are in is actually a burn room. It's an incinerator. They're going to be destroyed. Everything around them is going to be incinerated. And this is Val clearing all the evidence, which includes the various agents I've been working under, the, Black Ops teams and stuff like that. Everyone's going to die. And they have 2 minutes. It's weird that Val would give them a countdown, but, is what it is. And the point that they have to come to is that Ghost is the only one that can get out of the room. However, there are a bunch of sound-emitting, I guess, alarms or something that completely disable the ability for Ghost to, phase through walls, which is very unfortunate. Obviously, it means that she can't really help in any useful way, except the power source for these noise emitters or whatever is in the room with them. So they find it, and John just smashes it with his shield. That is the end of that entire issue, and Ghost goes out, opens the door, lets everyone out, and, with the exception of Taskmaster, everyone survives. Everyone else escapes the incinerator, except for Taskmaster, because screw Taskmaster, I guess. I don't know why they decided to do that. I guess it is for shock value, but I really didn't expect it. I don't know. It feels very weird in this film, especially with some of the events that are going to happen a little bit later. But yeah, with the power being out, it means the elevator is no longer working. They have to climb the elevator shaft together, locking arms, walking up on the sides. It's a very interesting, kind of funny scene, in my opinion, but nothing too special. John near enough kills them all in trying to get to the door, which, no one really takes too well. But it also has a second instance of Bob having this ability. And we first see this when everything gets blown up and set on fire and everything, because when he touches Yelena is thrown into her darkest memory, and it is of her as a child setting up this other child to be killed. And that was part of her widow training or whatever else. It was part of her, training into being an assassin. And it's a very dark scene. We see it a few times, and it kind of loses some of its, power, I suppose. But yeah, we already saw that. Then we also see when Bob and John touch hands, John is suddenly transported into one of his darkest moments, which is something that you've probably already seen in the trailers. Him on his phone while his toddler son is crying in the crib. And he has clearly, since the events of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, clearly just fallen into a deep depression. And we later find out that his wife left him and took the kid, which is, that is some dark storytelling for John, like that he is at that low of a point, and he still talks about how he has a wife and kid to go home to and stuff, and he still talks as if like he has something worth living for. And I know of course he has something worth living for. I mean, as in, like, from his perspective, he's so deluded in, his grandeur, and he's so deluded in, like, what he thinks he can do to fix things, and it's really sad to see. It is honestly a really sad storyline for John that really just isn't touched upon. The US agent is, there throughout the film. He doesn't really get much going on, which is interesting. They get all the little references to the fact that he killed a civilian with his shield and this, that, and the other, and he was only, Captain America for 10 minutes and stuff like that. But, like, a lot of the characters just kind of have what happened to them in the past thrown out. Same with, Ghost. She's just like, oh yeah, as a child I was experimented on. End of story. Like, we don't get any more exploration of that. As Yelena is very much the main character here, with Alexei being like a secondary. But, yeah, very interesting indeed in terms of how they treat these character backstories. But yeah, that is apparently Bob's ability at this point. He can make you envision, like, fantasize or whatever, your darkest moments. And so far, that's at least what we have. They work together to beat up a bunch of OXC, CIA, whatever, militants, and they manage to escape. Though they are stopped, and so Bob decides to sacrifice himself. He's already been talking about how he's just slowing people down, he's making things worse, and stuff like that. So, very, down in the dumps, sort of, like, depression talk, and it's really sad to actually see. So he decides that in order to allow the rest of them to escape, he's going to sacrifice himself. He runs out in front of the military, he starts firing a gun into the air wildly, and they open fire on him. Against Val's wishes, but they do fire on him. Only to find out he is completely and utterly bulletproof. His clothes are shredded by the bullets, but he is unscathed and floating. He flies up, he passes out from presumably, like, low air pressure from flying too high, and comes down like a missile into the mountain, knocking everyone over, knocking the Thunderbolts, I'm going to call them the Thunderbolts vehicle off the road, and just kind of, proving that he is a very dangerous threat that Val suddenly really, really wants on her side. So, yeah, we are then greeted with Alexei coming in the Red Guardian limo and picking up our remaining Thunderbolts. So, we have now the Red Guardian with Black Widow, US Agent, and Ghost. And Bob, the Sentry, is under the control of Val. He's been taken in by OXC or the CIA or whatever organization Val is currently representing. And yeah, it's the point in the film where we are introduced to the name Thunderbolts, and this is her soccer team. Yelena's soccer team was called the Thunderbolts, and Alexei really likes that name, keeps calling them the Thunderbolts, and that is basically what it is. They are together the Thunderbolts. So yeah, they're driving along, having small talk, regular stuff, when they are attacked by a convoy, which, you don't have a bulletproof limo, and you've only got a fake Captain America shield to protect you, and yeah, it's a pretty basic chase scene, nothing too special, though it's low speed, with a lot of miniguns being fired, only for the vehicles to start exploding, with the reveal that it is Bucky, and he right now is a congressman. We did find out in Captain America Brave New World, and yeah, he rides up like the Terminator with the explosive gun from Captain America the Winter Soldier and just destroys the convoy, only to then also blow up the limo. But it turns out he's actually coming for them, and yeah, at that point, just take a pause, because we now know what was happening with Stark Tower. The Avengers Tower, it's now the Watchtower. It's owned by Val, it's, CIA, or it's OXC, or whatever, and it's being used as a lab to, recruit Bob. And that's what Val's trying to do. She's trying to recruit Bob to her cause, make him the Sentry, and, have a superhero that can beat anyone, that is stronger than all the Avengers combined. And, yeah, it goes pretty well for her, actually. Bob definitely has some delusions of grandeur, especially. But yeah, he is kind of tricked by Val into becoming the Sentry. Bucky has captured the team, and when he gets a call basically saying, Bob is going to kill everyone, please come and help, Bucky then frees them and takes them with him to defeat Valerie, because... Oh, Valentina, sorry, not Valerie. Because, yeah, with, someone as powerful as the Sentry, Bucky needs anyone he can get, and this is going to bring me to my biggest kind of issue with this film, and that's the fact, where are the rest of the Avengers? And not in terms of, there should be an Avengers team. We know there isn't a, concrete Avengers team right now, but where is Sam? Where is, where's Sam, Captain America? Where's the Falcon? Where is Ant-Man? We know of at least 2 Hulks, well, technically 3 Hulks, because of Scar as well, that are on Earth right now. There are so many different superheroes that are around and active. Like, call in Wong, call in Doctor Strange, call in literally anyone. I was thinking, the entire film, this would be solved so much quicker if we just brought in Captain Marvel. We know that she's off-world. We know that that's, what she does. She's out in space all the time. However, she can fly so stupidly quickly that it doesn't really matter. Get Wong on the communications, or get whoever on the communications with her. We've seen it before in Shang-Chi. Get Carol on Earth, because that solves all your problems. And Bucky, through his connections, should be able to do that. Bucky talking to Sam, Sam talking to whoever, realistically. It doesn't really matter. But just communicate with everyone. Get the teams together, and suddenly you've got a pretty strong superhero team. The new Avengers, an actual Avengers team. But no, that doesn't happen. It kind of bugged me, because it would have solved a lot of the events of the film far quicker. And I understand why, for a storytelling perspective, that they don't do it. But at this point, we know that everyone is separated. But when a threat like the Sentry, the Void, is around, it's weird that they don't call in, bigger guns, so to speak. But yeah, we then go to Avengers Tower, and Val reveals the Sentry. Bob is suited up. He's got a very classic comic style outfit for the Sentry, with the big S on his chest, the white, the blue. Very classic, very good looking outfit, actually, all things considered. And I've got a feeling we probably will never see it again, based on, the post-credit scene, for one, but I'll get into that when we get to that point. He easily just destroys the Thunderbolts. Like, he only stops at killing them. He doesn't actually kill anyone in this scene, but he just beats them all up. Like, he manages to defeat, at this point, 3 different super soldiers, someone who can phase, and fair enough, a Black Widow, anyone with actual powers can beat a Black Widow, but like, it's kind of insane how easily he just destroys them, and it does show how much of a threat Bob is, how much of a threat, the Sentry, the Void is. And yeah, it is humiliating for the Thunderbolts, which leads to them actually escaping and then just disbanding. They just run off, they just leave, and yeah, that then leads to the Sentry kind of turning on Val, because he realizes, well, they're not a threat to me, why would I even bother killing them? I can do what I want, I don't have to listen to you. So Val's assistant, specifically, pulls the trigger and eliminates the Sentry. Kills, in quotations, of course, but yeah. The Sentry is down. The Sentry is defeated because he has a kill switch inside him, only for him to turn to Void. He turns into the Void, just a pure black mass with white glowing eyes and the slightest evil smile, and honestly, very creepy design. Completely in character, completely like matches with the comic version of the Void. But yeah, such a creepy thing to have visualized in live action. And I will say, the Sentry in general in this film, honestly, I didn't think they'd be able to do it, but the Sentry looks fucking fantastic in terms of live action. He is incredibly cool in live action, and it's a shame that I don't think we're going to see the Sentry much in the future of the MCU. Not because he's dead or anything, but just because he's not going to use his powers much or not be in the field much. But yeah, it is incredible watching everything the Sentry and the Void do. It's kind of incredible. We don't get enough of it, in my opinion. But yeah, from that, Alexei and Yelena have a heart-to-heart. So they kind of express all the different feelings they have about, commitment and family and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that they need to be closer and they need to be there for each other. And it kind of is the fixing point. It doesn't look like it in the film, but I think it is really the fixing point for Alexei and Yelena. It's the point at which they actually are there for each other, and they actually are finally, at peace, if not happy. Definitely at peace. I wouldn't say they're happy at all in this film, but yeah, definitely at the point of calm. And I think that's really good to see, like, that it does get resolved, especially because Yelena and Alexei are the main characters we follow in this film. Bob, as the Void, turns some soldiers to shadow, which is a horrific effect, and we see it happen to many civilians as well. It is absolutely terrifying. Literally just turning people to, like, misty shadow, and it is terrifying. It is probably the most horrific death we've ever seen in the MCU, and we'll get into it, but it gets worse. The team comes back together to save civilians. There's some really good action moments of them actually, like, saving people and actually working together with all the different powers combined, even though most of them have the same power set. And they manage to, save a bunch of people, at which point, people start cheering, people start celebrating that, this new superhero team is there to help. And then, it sounds ridiculous to say, Alexei, the Red Guardian, saves a small child, a little girl, from being crushed by rubble. He blocks the rubble out of the way, very Superman style, but only for her to just be turned to shadow. Instantly. Like, he saves her, and there's a few seconds of, like, well done, Alexei, you've done good. And then she is turned to shadow. This child is on-screen killed, and it is honestly horrific. Civilians are just continue to be turned to shadow. It just happens more and more and more. And as the rest of the Thunderbolts are, getting people to safety, getting people into buildings, getting people into the subway and stuff like that, Yelena accepts the darkness. She just freely walks into the Void. And it takes her. She turns to a shadow. Which, once again, shocked me greatly. Leading to the rest of the Thunderbolts not really knowing what to do, but thinking maybe there is some plan relating to walking into the darkness, which is when it's revealed that the Void actually forces people to relive their darkest moments, and obviously we've already seen that, happen to both Yelena and John when they touched Sentry, jeez. When they touched Sentry, when they touched Bob. But yeah, this is what the Void does. If you are banished into the Void, if you are, brought into the darkness, if you are turned into a shadow, you are just forced to live your darkest moment forever. And there are other moments you can visit, but you will always be trapped in your darkest moments throughout your life. And it is kind of horrible. We once again see some various parts of the widow training from Yelena's perspective, and we also see a moment where she is drunk in the bathroom of some place. We don't really get any context to it, but yeah, just some very dark moments from Yelena's past, until she finds Bob in there, and Bob accepts her in, and just they have a chat, and a few things get revealed around Bob's past, the fact that he had an abusive father, and just things like that, things to that, kind of nature of he had a very messed up childhood, which is why he is messed up in the way that he is in the present, and as well as a bunch of things to do with drug use and whatever else. But yeah, the Thunderbolts enter the void. As I say, they did have a plan that maybe Yelena did it on purpose for a purpose, and the Thunderbolts enter the void. They managed to help Bob track down his darkest point. They travel to Bob's darkest point, which is actually when he first got the Sentry powers and turned two people to Shadow. And it's at this point that Bob fights the Void. The Sentry versus the Void. Bob Reynolds versus his dark alter ego. And it is very quickly shown that actually that's exactly what the Void wants. Bob needs to give in to the Void for the Void to win. And it starts to entrench him. It starts to turn him to Shadow, but in the same form as the Void. He is still him, but he's just turning to darkness. And through sheer force of will, the Thunderbolts manage to break free of confinement that the Void has put them in and help to pull Bob out of the darkness by showing that they are there for him and that they actually support him, and they literally just do a group hug to get him out of it, and they are free and everything is returned to normal. The child is shown to not be dead, which is a very nice thing to happen, but we then see that Val is trying to get evac. So, of course, the Thunderbolts are all about to beat her to within an inch of her life when she tricks them into coming onto stage in front of the press corps that have been told to show up, and reveals them to be the new Avengers. The Thunderbolts are the new Avengers. Not willingly, but they are. And they are the government's Avengers. So exactly what, Thunderbolt Ross wanted Sam to make a, government-backed Avengers team, but now isn't. The new Avengers is the CIA's secret weapon made up of a bunch of mercenaries and a god, essentially, in Sentry, which is kind of insane. And that's the film. That is the entire film. We have a bunch of graphics in the credits relating to how these Avengers aren't really the Avengers, and we are going to have a true team later on down the line. And we have our first post-credit scene of the new Avengers on the Wheaties box, which is a previous reference from Alexei. And Alexei is in a shop, and he's like, look, I'm on the Wheaties box to just a random person. And it's very cute. I like the Red Guardian. I think Alexei's great. And he got to be on the Wheaties box. Good for him. Good for him. But that brings us to our second post-credit scene. And this is 14 months later. This is 14 months from the main events of Thunderbolts. And we are told directly that Sam is creating an Avengers team, and it is different from the new Avengers that are government-backed. And people aren't very happy about it. People don't believe the new Avengers are real, or as in, they aren't the real Avengers team. People are backing Sam. Sam is actually trying to copyright the term Avengers. And whilst Bucky has spoken to Sam, it didn't go anywhere, which kind of works out, kind of makes sense, and also means we now have two different Avengers teams ongoing. This is a very common thing in the comics, West Coast Avengers and stuff like that, and I'm very interested in seeing how this expands into, the Young Avengers, because we know they are coming, and also how it will go into Secret Wars and all the other various different Avengers events that are going to be coming up in the next few years. But yeah, we hear about a space crisis that apparently the new Avengers aren't big enough to, know about. They've heard about it, they're hearing rumors and stuff like that, but not really being told what's going on, not really getting involved. And then they see that a ship has entered from another multiverse. A multiversal ship, a, cross-dimensional ship, has just entered outside of Earth. And it is the Fantastic Four ship entering the 616. And that is the conclusion to Thunderbolts. A direct run-in with what I assume will be the end of Fantastic Four First Steps. So yeah, there we go. And I did mention it a little bit before, but Bob hasn't, in that 14-month span, used his powers because he's too scared of the Void taking over, which sounds pretty sensible to me. It does also just mean that Sentry is probably not going to be too heavily involved in the future of the MCU, unfortunately. He's a bit too powerful in all consideration, but yeah, very interesting turn of events in the grand scheme, and this film is great. Honestly, I really, really enjoy it, and the fact that I've seen so much mixed opinions on it really does show what kind of film it is. It is a really good Marvel film. All things considered, it can be a little slow at times, but the action is great. The villain isn't just, big sky laser and alien invasion. It's actual, it's a serious threat, but it's also something that can be defeated with loving kindness and hugs and stuff. It's a very all-over-the-place film, but I honestly think this is one of the best films that Marvel have released in years. And the fact that, I wasn't that sold in the grand scheme of things on Brave New World, but Thunderbolts is excellent. And, this may sound a little low for how much praise I'm giving it. I am giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. That's an 8 out of 10. I really like this film. I really do. I think it's a really good Marvel film. And I really hope that when I watch Fantastic Four, hopefully soon, it lives up to that setup in the post-credit scene, because that was very fun. But, yeah, with that being said, that is it from me. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like it, subscribe and enter, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Otherwise, completely your thoughts and feelings on Thunderbolts, the New Avengers. And I'll see you next time. Bye!
It's been a long week. I feel like I could use a vacation. I can hardly think. It's like the worst song you've